Welcome, guys. I'm Sarah Barnett from Simply STEAM.
And I'm Lisa Taylor from Teaching the Stars.
And we're so happy that you guys can join us tonight. And we're going to talk to you guys tonight about how to have a successful first week back to school.
No matter where you're at, virtual, at home, blended, or at the site.
I am Sarah Barnett. I am a ninth year teacher. This will be my ninth year, served 4 years as a K-2 STEM coach. Lisa, go ahead and talk about yourself.
I'm a planner. I like to know exactly what's going on. And so instead of embracing it, I've just been like, okay, I haven't been at work in 5 months. I mean, I worked at home. So I'm starting to think through the processes that I want to go through and just to make this year the best ever with the situation we have.
Planning, I like that you said that because that is the number one thing for success is to begin with the end in mind. That's what Stephen Covey says. And so we've got to have a plan. And I feel like naturally as teachers, we are planners. And so we're going to talk a lot today about some tips and strategies for planning. You have some 5 must-have read aloud for a memorable first week back to school. So we're going to start those. But go ahead.
So Just Ask. I love this book. Sarah, have you read this book?
I've never read that.
Okay, so it is wonderful because if you don't understand something, if somebody has a condition or is in a situation that you don't understand, it might be like they're checking their blood for their blood sugar. Instead of just worrying and wondering and staring, and just ask. And so all through the book, there's different situations so that you can learn about it. And instead of being afraid of something that may be different or maybe not understanding it and staring, that if you ask, then you'll understand, and that you can talk about if someone does sign language, you can ask them about that. It goes through different disabilities. And so it's just a really neat book to introduce to your class. And so instead of trying to avoid some of those issues, if you just talk about it and everybody feels a little bit more comfortable with it, then I feel like that builds your community even stronger in your classroom.
I love that. And I think that's such a great way to start off some of the first few days with that. Just ask, because the kids are going to be wanting to get to know each other, and they're kind of nervous, like looking at each other's differences too. So
yeah. And so I, a couple years ago, had a student that had a prosthetic leg, and he had had it since he was a baby. So he was very comfortable with it, and he wanted to tell us so that we would be comfortable with it too, and it would be over, And so at the very first, he would share stuff about that. And so we were like, it was just him, like that was part of him. And then we were all comfortable with it. It was still a little bit whenever one recess, he came to me and said, I just broke my leg off. Do you have a screwdriver? And handed it to me. And so I was like, no, I don't, but we can go find one, So he made me more comfortable with that. And so now I feel like just the way he taught me how to deal with that, he was very comfortable with it. So made me a lot better.
You were telling me about how you're like, it's just amazing because the kids, like, they don't even care. Like, he just comes and he puts his leg on the desk or whatever, and he's like,
yeah.
I don't want to wear it right now.
Yeah, I always told his mom that he needed to go to like the children's hospital to help kids that maybe as an older student get an amputation or something, so that he could, show them, hey, you can play football. You can still do really amazing things. And so
I love that. What do you got next?
Where are you from? And it just talks about they're asking where you're from, where you belong, and it's just a great story to start your class with, just talking about where we're from, where are you from, and just getting to make your class community and showing that we're all from different places, but just that we're all respected and appreciated. At the very beginning, starting your culture that everybody is respected, but also that you want to learn about it. That is a learning opportunity. Oh my goodness, you came from, if they want to share that, but I try to talk about current events, and if they have any experiences from any of those places that they feel that it's valued, you know, in my classroom.
I love that. Okay, what you got next?
I wish you more. And this is so precious. I love this book. It would be great to read at the beginning of the year and then to come back and read it at the end. But I wish you more ups than downs. And I wish all the teachers more ups than downs. I wish you more give than take. I wish you more tippy toes than deep. So it just goes on to share just the wishes you want to have. And so I start the year off with this, because what do you wish more of this year than maybe what you had in the past? Or, you know, I wish you more reading books than pretending to read, or I wish you more learning my math facts than counting on my fingers. I don't know. So if I built a school, I love this one because this connects with one of my first STEM projects. It's like, what would your perfect school be? Some of us will, this will be a little different this year. So their school might be virtual, their school might be blended, their school might be. So making this, and then usually we use Legos and create our school. Okay, snippets. A story about paper shapes. I have almost all of these, and I'll be sharing these over the weeks. But this is great because if they're at home, students are at home or at school, they can use this to create art. And so at the very beginning, the odd shapes were kind of out because they just wanted the squares and triangles because they made perfect houses. And the shapes that were odd cut, they couldn't, they didn't fit in. And so they wouldn't let them be around them. And so that's just kind of building your classroom community about you're starting to feel sorry for the shapes that are not exactly the same. But then they tell them that, hey, we could really make this better. And so they finally convinced at the end that the shapes that were just regular to let them help. And so then they built really creative houses. And so they turned it into like this fabulous community. And so I just love it because it's kind of like our classrooms. You might have some friends that have already been together since kindergarten, you know, and somebody that might like some other things that you don't, but how can we blend in and make this perfect classroom? So I love these books because they all have some kind of community building habit, but also just teaching kids that different is okay and you can bring them into your group. You don't have to just be squares and triangles.
So I'm going to talk to you guys about managing, organizing, and communication must-do tips. No exceptions. As far as organization goes, I think that right now is the perfect time if you are able to get into your classroom and organize it, just your basic supplies, things like pencils, your pencil sharpener. Where are you going to put them? How are students going to use them? Start thinking about things like that right now. But since we are also doing this digitally, I want you to not only think about your supplies in the classroom, think about your file folders on your desktop computer, because you're going to have to keep it so organized this year, because some of us, like I know in our district, we will be teaching from the classroom while we have half of our class at home doing remote learning. So we have to keep those files organized, and just right now is a really great time to go through it and clean it out and organize it. Then talking about managing your classroom. You've got to build a routine that first week, and there's no exceptions. You set the bar high, and your students might think that you're mean. Who cares? So what? You're teaching them that they have expectations and they've got to perform their best always. So set the bar high, especially these first 6 weeks. I've got a checklist right here that I'll be sending you about transitions, behaviors, classroom supplies, and distance learning. I added a little quadrant right here for distance learning. And so think about how you're going to start managing. How often do you want your students and parents to check the emails or Class Dojo messages or whatever form of communication that you use? How often do you expect them to check? I think that's a really big one. Um, and then be consistent with that too, so that they know when to look. Talk to your kids and your families about creating a conducive workspace at home. Also, another thing, and Lisa, you can chime in on this too. I was a one-to-one teacher we started one-to-one in 2013 with my second graders. And I was one-to-one all the way up until 2018. And then I lost my computers. I started with very early, very young kids, and we had to talk about safe places of where to take our computers. We had little like Chromebooks kind of. So where do you keep these computers? What's a safe place in your house? What's not? Make those anchor charts and talk about that. Talk about who can play on the computer, who has permission to be on your computer. Does your little brother or sister have permission to be on it? Does your dog or cat have permission to be around the charger? No. Is it a good idea to take your computer into your kitchen while you eat? No. What about the bathtub or the sink while you're brushing your teeth? No, no, no. So, and I tell you that from experience because we have had so many computers get busted at home for silly things like that.
When you were one-to-one, they would take them home with them.
Yes.
Because see, we're one-to-one and we've never in the elementary schools brought them home.
Girl, we have
like teaching them not to drink like a big drink right beside while they're doing something, you know, because, and we talk about that in the classroom, but I think that's going to be really important to make sure they understand that, because a lot of them are probably at the kitchen table doing their work.
I mean, because that's like the normal table that people have in their house. You've got to talk about that conducive workspace where they can keep that computer and what they should have around it, and make sure it's consistent too, guys. And another thing, let them know, I've had like second graders get on things that they should not be on. And it made me so sad. But the reason why I say that is because kids, unfortunately, they don't understand that what they do on the computer is public, no matter what they do. And so you've just got to make it real clear that I can see it, your mama can see it, your grandmama can see it, the principal can see it, everybody can see it. So if you wouldn't say it to any of them, don't say it on the computer, and make it really crystal clear. The last thing is communication. And that one is also going to be super duper important this year because, again, things are changing so fast. Everything's evolving week to week, you know. So what I made for you is a little parent communication log. And so what you do is you write the student's name at the very beginning of the year. Put this in your folder and make sure that you have your student's name on here. Put your student's, the parent's name, and make sure that you have their correct last name, because oftentimes they have a different last name, and the worst thing is to call them by the wrong last name because you don't know if it's a bitter thing or what. Make sure you have the parent's correct name. And then I've got a column for the date that you called them or contacted them, the reason for it. And when you call them, you make sure that if you're calling them about a problem, make sure that you have the solution that you want to propose to the parent in mind. Don't just call them and say, well, I don't know what to do about this. Okay, because that's going to make you look like you don't know what you're doing. So have a solution in mind. And then you can check off how you've called them, and then listen to your parents too when you talk to them, because they might have some good information. You can write the results of that call in the other column. And then if you want to have a follow-up date with something else, you can write that. But keep this year round so that you can have it. But think about, how are you going to consistently communicate to your parents? I do Class Dojo. Lisa, what do you do?
I do remind, but this year I think we're going to do something different. I'm not for sure. I'm going to have a setup on the Google Classroom and those kind of things. So I think we're all going to do the same. Our K2 is going to do seesaw format. So that's how they're going to communicate to their parent. It'll be interesting to see exactly what we do, but we definitely are going to do the same 3-5 and K2, so that if the students have multiple siblings, they understand that format. So communicating with your team is huge. The other day when we had our call, they were talking about circle sit spots, so I can space them out. And the students, you know, like if they are up, if they can see, okay, there's 6 feet. This is 6 feet, so that they can see how far that space is, like if they're sitting over here, where's the next spot somebody can sit in? And so maybe have some of those sit spots so students can socially distance and maybe take off their mask for a little bit if they're sitting in that spot facing the opposite way. So just trying to think through some of those things. So definitely communicate with your teams, because I'm sure they have ideas about some things too.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free. You can contact me at simplysteambysarah@gmail.com, or you can contact Lisa Taylor at lisataylorteacher@gmail.com. And if you have any other questions that you don't mind sharing publicly, you can share those comments with us in our group. We look forward to talking to you guys. Bye.
Bye.